Good morning, gentlemen, or good evening, or good night, depending on what part of the world you're in. I have got a doozy for you. But before I do, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your support, as always, for sharing, for liking, for commenting, and getting the word out there. We are helping more men than ever before, if you saw my video just yesterday. Now, today I wanted to touch on some news from Scotland across the other side of the globe. So some of you may not know this, but I actually have some Scottish heritage. My dad is from Scotland. That's where he emigrated from. My ancestry goes back to about the 1600s, and they're all Scottish. I'm basically the first descendant of his bloodline that is not fully Scottish. So there we go. That explains a bit of the ginger, right? Anyway, this domestic bill, I'm going to bring this up on the screen here, gentlemen. And I want you to really listen today. I know you guys always listen, but this is something to be, just listen to the words. Look at the words. Understand the underlying meaning behind these, because it is absolutely critical, especially if you live in Scotland. In fact, look, you know this is going to be a good video. Share this with anyone you know that lives in Scotland, because they have to hear this. Don't share it with a woman in Scotland. Share it with a man in Scotland, because the women are already having all of this assistance shoved down their throats, whereas the men are not. All right, here we go. Hope you didn't hear that. Okay, here we go. Domestic bill. All right, look at that word between domestic and bill that I can't say. Domestic bill to give police and courts power to ban suspects from homes. Tell me more, because if there was someone who had actually been perpetrating such ABUSC, then perhaps it might be worthwhile looking at laws like this. But I'm going to need to dig a little further before I make my judgment on this. Here we go. Scotland's police and courts could get power to remove suspected domestic users from victims' homes under new Scottish government proposals. Justice, I'm probably going to end up just cutting sick by the end of this video, because this stuff just pisses me off. I'm trying to be good right now, but it never lasts. Justice Secretary Humza Yousaf announced that the domestic abuse, there we go, I said it. The domestic bill will be considered by Parliament within weeks, and if passed, would allow police to ban suspects from entering a property for a short period. Officers could then apply to the courts for a longer-term protective order, preventing the return of the suspected perpetrator for up to 2 months. The Justice Secretary argued the plans would give victims, and they just say victims, they just assume that someone who's alleged that they're the victims are the victims, would give victims, quote unquote, vital breathing space free from a perpetrator's coercion and control to decide the best future option for them, end quote, in addition to specialist support if required. The proposed legislation announced in last week's program for government also aims to make it easier for social landlords to transfer tenancy of a property from the perpetrator to the victim of domestic use if they have been married or living together or live together. So let me just break this first few small paragraphs down. Basically, anyone who is suspected of perpetrating, they don't have to be found to have been perpetrators. They don't need to have any evidence to prove that they are. They just need to be suspected of perpetration in order to be prevented from entering a property. And that's indiscriminate. So that means it could be their property that they own. It could be the property that their great-grandmother left to them when she passed away. He's not allowed to go there if he is suspected of perpetrating for up to 2 months. Now, the Justice Secretary argued the plans would give victims vital breathing space. So let me ask you this. If they're the victim based on someone being suspected of being the perpetrator, simply because the alleged victim has accused someone who's an alleged perpetrator, they can essentially use laws. Like, imagine if someone, it's funny how they say free from an abuser's coercion and control. Imagine if the person who was making the accusation was actually the person who was the perpetrator and is using this as a method of coercion and control, because this is the feminist agenda. And when it says the proposed legislation aims to make it easier for social landlords to transfer tenancy of a property from the perpetrator to the victim, if they've been married or living together, let me just bring up what it actually means, because we want to get the definition of what social housing actually is. So I'm just going to quickly bring that up here, and we'll return to this page in a moment. So what social housing is in the context of Scotland, it's housing owned and managed by public authorities, mainly councils and housing associations, registered social landlords, or RSLs. We want to make sure that everyone in Scotland, no matter their financial situation, has access to good quality housing. So we support landlords to provide affordable accommodation allocated according to need. So basically, this is for people on lower incomes who are of a lower socioeconomic status. This is what this housing is. But what this proposed legislation is actually suggesting, that someone who's already vulnerable, someone who is already financially in a difficult position, who is living in this social housing, if they are alleged and suspected to be a perpetrator, then they can be removed from their housing while they're already in a vulnerable position, to make way for the person who's moved in with them and is probably getting free rental or paying almost nothing. Now, with all of the support structures in place, particularly in Scotland and the UK, there is no reason why a woman who has chosen to move in with someone, regardless of whether he's actually a perpetrator or not, cannot move and get money for appliances and rental assistance and priority housing and all of these things that are on the table for them. So basically, women in Scotland are in a position where, well, if you want to stay in someone's home that doesn't belong to you, or the lease isn't in your name, then you can stay there. But if you want to leave, then we're going to throw handouts at you to move. So no matter what you want to do, you basically get to do whatever you want. You have no accountability, you have no responsibility. There's no ethical or moral considerations on your part for you to have to actually, look at the implications of your actions. Let's dig a little further. Mr. Youssef also revealed plans to fund new research by Glasgow Caledonian University into victims of coercive control and stalking and their experiences of the justice system. And of course, we know what the universities are like. They are overrun by feminists. So any study is going to be done through a feminist lens. And if they want to do a study through a feminist lens, that's fine, but that should not be the conduit for social policy. This study will look at issues including victim empowerment. Oh, the word empowerment, so overused. Victim empowerment through the court process. Hear that? And what the meaning of empowerment is to give someone power. It will look at issues including giving victims power through the court process. That's what victim empowerment through the court process means. It means giving victims power. And the court assumes you're a victim if you are female. So it's basically saying giving women who claim they are victims power through the court, through an institutionalized feminist process. Thank you to Katie for that super chat, brother. I appreciate that. Said Sydney, stay well, brother. Stay well. I will, my friend. I will. Thank you so much. Mr. Youssef said, the COVID-19 pandemic has shone a light on the vulnerabilities of some people in our communities, not least who endure domestic, who are on the receiving end of domestic perpetration, whether physical, psychological, or coercive controlling behavior. Now, it may interest you to know, and I'm going to bring this article up also, because just for a bit of context in the UK, right, because Scotland is part of the UK, they introduced some laws that protect genuine victims against coercive control. And not only was a woman the first person to ever be convicted under these new coercive control measures and under these coercive control legislative modifications. But men are increasingly becoming victims of coercive control, legal experts claim. Increasing numbers of men are becoming victims of coercive control relationships as their partners threaten to restrict access to children, legal experts claim. So let's take that article and go back to this context here. Right? COVID-19 pandemic has shone a light on those who are enduring psychological or coercive controlling behavior. So that would include men, right? Given that legal experts are coming out and saying that increasing numbers of men are being on the receiving end of this, right? I wish that was true, but it's not, because the Scottish government is taking firm action to tackle this wicked blight, which scars the lives of too many families and diminishes our communities. From our equally safe strategy and record funding to tackle, you guessed it, violence against women and girls, to the groundbreaking legislation in 2019 made psychological abuse a crime, we are doing all that we can to consign domestic victimization at the hands of perpetrators and gender-based violence and discrimination to history. Record funding to tackle violence against women and girls so that we can consign gender-based discrimination to history. Is it just me, or is the irony just dripping from that statement? By the way, shout out to Dave York 0 for those 2 super chats. I appreciate you, man. That's number 1. And number 2, thank you. This domestic bill is important because it lifts the burden from those already suffering or at risk from abuse by giving greater powers to police to intervene where necessary. Are we going to include those dudes who were increasingly the victims of coercive control relationships? Oh, no, because guess who's saying it? Dr. Marcia Scott, Chief Executive of Scottish Women's Aid. Yes, that's right. Not Human Aid, just Women's Aid. She said, and I quote, domestic ABUS 3 is the leading cause of women's homelessness in Scotland, even though men are the overwhelming majority of homeless. But domestic ABUS 3 is the leading cause of women's homelessness in Scotland, with women experiencing these domestic phenomenons often having to choose between staying in the home with a perpetrator or making themselves and their children homeless to get away from the abuse. Well, they don't have to actually make their children homeless. The children could stay with the father in the home that the father's providing for them. But, you know, we all know that the children do not belong to the father. Children don't belong to the father. The father has nothing to do with the kids. The kids only belong to the person that came out of, not the person who put them into the person that it came out of. I shake my head at stuff, honestly. So here's a tweet, a reminder that Scotland's domestic victimization and forced marriage helpline remains available 24/7. Service is free, confidential, and available on the phone, email, or web chat. Now, if this was Scottish Human's Aid and they helped everyone, I wouldn't really have an issue with that. But of course, we know that it only helps 1/2 of the population. So check this out. We have long said that protective orders would make an immediate and significant difference for those women and children, offering them respite and breathing space as they seek support and safety. You mean the protective orders that would then be seen in the eyes of the court as proving that the man was a violent perpetrator and therefore someone who shouldn't have their own children around them, and who would therefore, as a result of not having their kids around them and having to pay for the ex-partner or the mother having 100% custody, they'd have to pay full child support. And of course, because they're a poor single mother, because they're a poor single mother, they would get all of the government support, plus the tax cuts, plus the 100% child support. Plus, they would get the choice of not letting the father see the kids, because they could make an allegation that they wouldn't have to prove. And this stuff is true. This is in the legislation, guys. All right, it says here, we've long said protective orders would make a significant immediate difference, offering them respite and breathing space as they seek support and safety. But if it was the other way around, there's no support and safety for someone who has the swing between their legs. Shout out to Sandman. Survivors have asked for years, why should those being abused rather than the perpetrator have to leave their homes, pets, and belongings? That's a fantastic question. That is, as the Hodge twins would say, that's a damn good question. But it is a fantastic question. Why should those being abused, rather than the perpetrator, have to leave their homes, pets, and belongings? Why should male victims who are being abused, rather than the female perpetrator, have to leave their homes, pets, and belongings, where it is the female that is doing the perpetration? Shout out to Grandpa Seafood. Black Irish says, you have innate value as a man. Go your own way. Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate that super chat, man. Thank you very much. So we don't think that they should have to leave their homes, as long as they're female, of course. They don't say that in there, but that's what they mean. We don't think that they should. And it's not even that they shouldn't have to. So, well, we don't think that they should. We don't feel that they should. We don't want them to. It's all feelings, guys. We don't think that they should, and we very much welcome this legislation, which will be a step in the right direction towards changing that. Dr. Nancy Lombard, who will lead Glasgow Caledonian University's research into victims' experiences of the justice system. By the way, it is not a justice system, because if it was a justice system, then it would deliver justice all the time. But it's not a justice system. It is a legal system. This is just newspeak to try and make the justice, quote unquote, justice system out to be just and fair. Said, the study will explore the lived experiences of victims of stalking and coercive control as they navigate their way through the criminal justice system. It is important to recognize that victim-centered policy priorities and support. The abuse may persist beyond conviction, sentencing, and punishment. As such, victims can continue to feel disempowered and controlled. Through this research, we want to enable those women to have their say. Taking account of the current climate, we'll also be asking about how COVID has impacted on those living with abuse. So let's have a bit of a, and for anyone who is watching this video and going, oh, well, Women's Aid is just there to help women. They don't hate men. Let's do some digging, shall we? Because you know how much your boy Sydney loves to dig. Scottish Women's Aid. Let's have a look. Here we go. We've worked hard to move our specialist domestic abuse training online. We're pleased to share our series of upcoming webinars from toxic masculinity to children's rights. We'll be holding some fascinating discussions. Oh, I'm sure you will. And I'm guessing you're going to be holding those fascinating discussions with all your staff members, male and female, I'm sure. I mean, you wouldn't exclude men from being employed in an agency which is funded with government money, would you? I mean, that could be the case, but let's look into this, shall we? Here we go. Scottish Women's Aid. There was something in here. Let's do a quick search for the $. Hang on. So on the other search I did, it showed that they had, oh no wonder. It's a it's not a $, because it's Scotland. It is one of these bad boys. Control find, search, here we go. COVID fund gives women's domestic abuse charities £1.35 million. 1.35 million pounds. Let's have a look at this. Set to receive a £1.5 million boost to help women at risk of being on the receiving end of perpetration. Of course, they always put the image of the cowering victim on the couch with the kids' toys, feeling alone, to stoke emotional urgency to give more money to women and feminist groups. And look, I have no issue with money being given to help people that are genuinely actual victims, right? And I have no doubt that there are women out there who are genuine victims, and there's some guys who are really shitty. But it also goes both ways. It's not just a one-way thing. And Grapefruit Crisis Scotland will receive £226,000 to step up the support they can offer to women suffering from being on the receiving end of domestic perpetration over the next 6 months. So this is the kind of money that's being given to these organizations, over a 3 to 6 month period. Imagine that, right? Let's go back to this. So back to Women's Aid there. So we're having a bit of a look there. Of course, it's a registered charity, so any of their profits don't get taxed. Look at that, registered charity. Voila. Generously funded by Awards for All Scotland, National Lottery funded. So they got plenty of bank behind them. Now, oh geez, let's go down the rabbit hole. What have we got on Twitter? The cesspool. Here we go. We've worked hard to share our series of upcoming webinars. Here we go. Actually, you know what? That's actually on this page here, so I'm going to go back to that. But here we go. The vacancies. Remember what I said about how I'm sure this agency that cares so much about doing the right thing by everyone wouldn't exclude men, right? Let's have a look at the Scottish Women's Aid vacancies. Women's support worker. Only women are eligible to apply for this post. Volunteer coordinator. Only women are eligible to apply for this post. Domestic victim support and advocacy worker. Women only need apply under Schedule 9 of the Equality Act. Women's domestic victimization support worker. Women only need apply. Outreach support worker. Can only accept applications from women under Schedule 9 Part 1 of the Equality Act. Housing benefit worker. Dundee Women's Aid positively welcomes applications from women only. Posts are open to women only as permitted under Schedule 9 of the Equality Act. Doesn't sound like a whole lot of equality to me. Oh, here we go. We've got a treasurer, right? Surely a treasurer wouldn't be in direct one-on-one contact with women that are being assisted by Women's Aid, and therefore it wouldn't matter if it was male or female. Treasurer, Inverness Women's Aid. Due to the nature of our work, this opportunity is open to women only. It doesn't even put a caveat saying that it's covered under the Equality Act. So this is what you're looking at with these government-funded agencies like Women's Aid. Let's have a look at the learning and development that they give. I'm sure this will be enlightening for all of us. There was something else as well that I had up there before. Here we go, training programs. We offer a wide range of training opportunities. 40 years experience working with women, children, and young people affected by domestic abuse, but not men affected by domestic abuse. And not sons, if the rights of those sons would give those sons rights to safety that infringe upon what the woman wants. Details. Let's have a look. Understanding of the Scottish Government's definition of domestic victimization, including through theory and research. Well, I'm sure we already know what it means by the omission of a certain demographic group in the description of this. Knowledge of the DA Scotland Act 2018 and what it means for practitioners. So what the knowledge of the Act in Scotland means for people who actually practice social work, who are meant to be helping people. but only help certain people because the people that don't get helped are treated as the perpetrators. Confidence working in a relational, trauma-informed manner. So basically what trauma-informed means is that everything is through the framework of the traumatization of the victim, or who they call the victim. Facilitator Jodie McVicker is Scottish Women's Aid's National Training Coordinator. I'm sure she is such an egalitarian. I'm sure she cares so much about actual equality. Oh, here we go. She has a great interest in equalities. Of course she does. That is just Orwellian doublespeak. Oh, there we go. Domestic victimization and children and young people. We've got the same facilitator, Scottish Women's Aid's National Training Coordinator. She's running that one as well. I bet that's going to be all about equality. Oh, she's got a great interest in equalities. They love to talk about how much Jodie cares about equality. Introduction to domestic victimization. Understanding of the Scottish government's definition, including through theory and research. By the way, did you know that the Scottish government uses the Duluth model? I did. Same stuff again. Jodie McVicker, great interest in equalities. Copy and paste. Copy and paste. Oh, yep, here we go. She's supported implementation of various equalities legislation over the last 15 years with eradicating domestic victimization and the impact it has on women and children, a passion she's highlighted throughout this time. No consideration for anyone with a schwing. Aaron asked if my security gig has dried up for the moment. Aren't I normally sleeping from my long shifts by now? Usually I am, but I didn't work last night. I will be working tonight, however, so that's good. I got 4 shifts this week. There was a reason why it's not 5 or 6, but I'm not like, it's nothing to do with me. It's just the way that we're due to logistics and supply and demand for guards with the project that I'm working on at the moment and the place that I'm working. I can't give out too much, but no, you guys are free to make your own assumptions. I cannot confirm nor deny though. Technology facilitated abuse, what it is and what we can do about it. Oh, that's not good. Technology facilitated. We don't want that because it can be very dangerous. Oh, here we go. The facilitator is Ellie Hutchinson, a freelance feminist working with organizations and practitioners to make social change happen. She's been an activist, researcher, and trustee for third sector organizations over the last 14 years. A feminist activist, clearly, because she is a freelance feminist. I didn't even know there was such a thing as being a freelance feminist. Explore what technology facilitated victimization means, how communities can come together to prevent and respond to it, and how tech can be used positively to survive and move on from domestic victimization. She's a founding member of the Collective, feminist consultancy group, and is currently working on a project relating to gender equality. Yes, so much equality when you're ignoring half the population. Engaging with men and boys for prevention. And what that means, gentlemen, that is double speak for telling men and boys how not to use these fists. Community responses to COVID-19, feminist well-being, because nobody else needs to experience well-being, just feminists. Find out more at elliehutchinson.com. Thank you, Ellie. I might even take you up on that offer if I have time at the end of this video. There we go. We're going to look at children's rights and how they're impacted. Oh, Ellie again. Ellie, the freelance feminist. Let's continue. Oh, here we go. Here's a juicy one. 16th of November. All right, very, very close to International Men's Day. In fact, I'm sure it's International Men's Day is 19th of November, right? International Men's Day. I am such a, I shouldn't know this stuff. I love how IMD doesn't even come up when you search for it, but I'm pretty sure it's the 19th of November, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, let's go into this. I'm going to get slaughtered by you guys in the comments for not knowing that date. Masculinity and working with, by the way, I forgot my own birthday once, so please just keep that in mind. Masculinity and working with boys and men to prevent domestic abuse. This is a doozy, guys. This is a cracker. Who's the facilitator? Oh, Ellie Hutchinson, the freelance feminist. This is going to be great. As more young people form relationships online, working with young men and boys to think about virtual consent, sex relationships, and gender equality is becoming increasingly important. In this session, we will explore how toxic masculinity online is linked to racism, pickup artistry, incel culture, and sexism. These women are insane. They are insane. And when I say these women, I mean these feminist women that have these views, because they have got no idea what it's like to be a guy and no idea what they're talking about when they ramble on about this ideologically possessed nonsense. After this session, you'll be able to identify and respond to red flag language boys might be using. Explore how to respond in a supportive, positive way to limit harmful behavior. You know, that harmful behavior that only comes from people with the swing. Reflect on some of the issues young men and boys face online. Have a deeper understanding of how racism, transphobia, anti-Semitism, and sexism play out in online spaces. So, you know, those sections of those corners of the internet, those online-only corners where men don't interact with each other in real life, apparently, that's where all the racism and the transphobia and anti-Semitism and sexism play out, according to Ellie Hutchinson, the freelance feminist. Here we go. Feminism and domestic victimization. Gender inequality is a cause and consequence of gender-based violence. This session will explore what feminism is, what it means, and why an intersectional gendered lens is crucial in preventing and responding to all forms of such violence. Written by Ellie, the freelance feminist. Guys, this is Women's Aid. Let's check out our website. Home Feminist Wellbeing for Mothers, and Suffolk Grapefruit Crisis. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce Suffolk correctly. Tech Engagement Section, Relationships Education. Oh my goodness, this is going to be good. Blog. Well, let's check out the blog. Positive Impact, Positive Long-Lasting Change. I work with organizations and individuals looking to make long-lasting, it says long-last impact. It's long-lasting, for the record, Ellie. Long-lasting impact and change, using a feminist, collaborative, and creative approach to facilitation, research, and well-being. I work with folk in the arts, third, and public sector to enhance your knowledge, care, and compassion to change. Because, you know, working in this segment gives her the greatest opportunity for indoctrination. I have a background in violins against women, children and young people, housing, technology for good, and sex and relationships. I bet what she means by technology for good is using technology to control men's speech. Thank you again for that super chat, Dave York. I appreciate you. I was one of the architects of a law to tackle so-called revenge porn, founder of the Empower Project, which of course is founder of the Giving Power To Project, developer of the first bystander project for over 16s in the country, founder of Edinburgh Hollaback, and co-founder of Edinburgh Feminist Network. You can also find me over at The Collective, a feminist consultancy group. Oh God, here we go. Let's go down. We're going down the rabbit hole, guys. Together we can change the world. We are consultants and freelancers working for social change embedded in intersectional feminism. We have come together as a collective as we recognize the need for feminist and equalities-driven analysis to be in every aspect of policy, research, and public affairs. You hear that? The need. We recognize the need for feminist and equality-driven analysis through a feminist lens to be in every aspect of public policy, research, academia, and public affairs. The creation of a consultancy that brings together expertise to deliver feminist change across every sector in Scotland has been a long-held dream. Of course, it's been a dream of yours to control the entire country. If you'd like to work with us on participatory research, evaluation, strategy, or service design, wait for it, political influencing and co-production, find out more. So, if you're a feminist consultant working for change who shares our values and wants to work with us on a project, an idea, or an event, get in touch. Content and design, Ellie Hutchison, the freelance feminist. That's what she's all about, guys. Let's have a look at the sex and relationships education. Whether it's supporting children and young people to think critically. See, children and young people, they are indoctrinating our kids. And thank you again to Dave York for that extra super chat. I appreciate that, man. That's 4 super chats from Dave so far. And thank you to those who have given the biggest super chats at the start as well. I appreciate it. And Casey Wahlberg says, has given a super chat for $5. I appreciate that as well, man. She says, I have a wealth of experience in delivering prevention and intervention programs for schools, youth workspaces, and colleges and universities. Right, here we go. Listen to this carefully. This is what I say at the beginning of the video. So important to listen to the wording, whether it's about supporting children and young people to think critically about sex and relationships online, or creating policy, legal policy that requires us to legally abide by it and practice resources. Right, she can help deliver prevention and intervention programs for schools, aka indoctrination programs for schools, so that you can, think critically as a child or a young person. Indoctrination programs for youth workspaces and indoctrination programs for colleges and universities, so those institutions can churn out more activists. Clients include Zero Tolerance and Plan International UK in relation to prevention, sex and relationship, and working with young men and boys. And do you know why they're working with young men and boys? They're working with young men and boys to control young men and boys and tell those young men and boys that they are not allowed to hit back if they get hit, because it's always unacceptable to use these things against a woman. Research. Oh, let's have a look at this. Whether it's evaluations of impact, scoping exercises, or literary reviews, I've worked over the years to develop participatory research tools to ensure policy is fit for purpose. Yeah, fit for your purpose. Fit for your purpose. Using a people-led, feminist, and curious approach, I can help provide a knowledge base to tackling some of our biggest social problems, the ones that you dictate as the biggest social problems. Shout out to Mr. Hillbilly, who says these filthy feminists are promiscuous and have abortions but talk about a sex joke and they don't appreciate it because I'm a girl. Hypocrites these feminists are, especially baby shooters, baby boomers. YouTube, don't shoot the messenger. I just read a comment. Thank you for not shooting the messenger in advance. Well-being for change makers, aka feminists. It's just, I mean, look, I'm not even going to dig into this because it's just going to, who goes, oh my God, oh no. Curiosity-led change. As a CEO, freelancer, and a mum, a single mum, no doubt, I'm used to making lists, putting things into spreadsheets, and spending time tracking outcomes, KPIs, and what else does it say? And evaluating impacts. Oh, I feel sorry for Ellie's kids. I really do, because they're going to get a very warped view of the world that doesn't necessarily reflect reality. So let's go back to Women's Aid, who are the ones pushing for this legislation to have men kicked out of their homes on a woman's say-so. I told you, I don't like you seeing them. Huh, that sounds kind of familiar. Guys, have you ever heard from a woman, I don't want you hanging out with those guys, I don't like them? Right? Dave York has written, takes my super chats and doesn't confront the questions. I do apologize, Dave, if I haven't seen your questions. I am going to have a quick look back through and see if I can find them, because I'm guessing that there were some questions from what you've just said. I just didn't see them because they don't, because like I obviously got a lot of questions coming through. So it's very difficult for me to spot them. So I do apologize if I've missed something from you, Dave York. Just going to have a quick look now. Branton dodged the question. Yeah, so look, Dave, I'm sorry. It's stopped me from scrolling up further. I can't see anything from you that's still in my list. I apologize. I have tried to go and find it. Druid VW says, if you love your sons, for God's sakes, homeschool them. Nothing at all is better than the public indoctrination boxes or the public indoctrination camps, as myself and also Coach Greg Adams calls them. Shout out to Coach Greg Adams. What a guy. Let's have a look more. Let's go to look to some of the campaigns and the policy and research. Research, publications, briefings, and consultations. Information and support. So you can go to womensaid.scot, that's with 1 T, to check this out. Scrap the grapefruit clause and family cap. So basically what this is about is there's a clause where, here we go. Recently, the UK government brought out a policy that means that child tax credits are only available for the first and second child. Third or subsequent children don't get a look in except in the case of a few certain exemptions. One of these exceptions is if the child is a result of grapefruit. The Department of Work and Pensions claimed that this grapefruit exemption or grapefruit clause will only be carried out in the most compassionate way. But the question is, can forcing a woman to disclose grapefruit to receive welfare ever really be compassionate? For us, the answer is a flat out no. So this is an interesting one, because if they were to remove that clause, then they would, what that would mean is that people who did claim grapefruit for the purpose of getting a third or a fourth exemption for child tax credits would then not have to claim that. However, what it would incentivize is more people to have more kids out of wedlock, I believe. So it's a bit concerning for me. It's a real double-edged sword. I mean, without the legislation that you have that allows people to get kicked out of their own homes and whatnot, it would be a lot easier. It'd be a lot easier to prevent people making claims that weren't true for the purpose of financial gain. And I get why some people in a tough financial situation might make the decision to make false claims to get more financial assistance. I understand, right? If you are poor, you'll do pretty extraordinary things. That's why, some of the most disadvantaged kids live lives of crime, because sometimes that's their only way to survive. And I understand, and I don't want to, I don't want to step on anyone who is doing what they have to do to survive. But there are other ways around this that don't require throwing other people under the bus. Publications. Oh no, I know that we're going to be here for another hour if I go down the rabbit hole on these. So you guys can check that out. The womensaid.scot. Move your mouse over research and projects at the top, policy and research, and then publications, and check that out. They've got a number of different things that will be very revealing for you. Then they've got joint briefings on the children bill, submissions to the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, which of course will have nothing to do with equality, but they'll submit it to that commission anyway to try and get it implemented, to try and get institutionalized inequality. Where are we here? Yeah, so that's again under research and projects and policy and research and briefings and consultation. If you want to go down the rabbit hole, you can. Curiosity-led change. Yeah, that was the one from before. Anyway, guys, look, I pretty much exhausted that topic. I hope that this has been enlightening for you. Please share this with everyone you know that lives in Scotland that is male, because they need to hear this stuff. It is insane. It is crazy. It is just nuts. And there's nothing in here that in any way cares about, considers the implications for, or gives any sort of level of fairness to men. So guys, as always, please share this video, give it a like, drop a comment below, make sure you share it with as many people as you can. If you want to support this channel, head on over to sydneymigtow.com/brave. You can also check out Brave Browser in the link below, as well as PayPal if you want to make a donation that way. Shout out to the person who made a donation via PayPal yesterday. You know who you are. I sent you an email. Thank you. And there's also cryptocurrency as well. If you've got a little bit laying around that you'd like to swing Sydney's way, I I actually have a pile of stuff that I am still wanting to purchase for this setup. That includes a constant power supply for my camera, so I can have a better quality camera rather than this potato webcam here. Also have, I mean, there's a handful of stuff. There's a handful of stuff just so that I can, you know, basically have a portable podcast studio that I can take on the road with me, that is always on, that is always available. I can have in the back of my car. And if I'm ever having a great conversation with someone, I can just be like, look, let's grab these microphones out and get this down on audio. So that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you as always. Thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you so much for all your likes and comments and shares and all of the sort of stuff that gets this word out there and helps people more than you know. I appreciate you all. I'll catch you in the next video. But until then, peace.